As a delicious irony, the principal victims of Donald Trump's attack on DEI in colleges are probably going to be white men. Now, everybody thinks, and of course Republicans and Trump thought, that if colleges were forced to just, accept people based on nothing more than their, SAT scores or something like that. In other words, if colleges didn't say, well, it would be a good thing if we had a few more foreign students, if we had a few more black students, if we had a few more Hispanic students, if we had a few more women. This is how, Republicans are thinking of this. And in some ways, it's how it works. That they could blow this all up, and what's going to happen is that our colleges would become white and male. Well, it turns out that about 60% of college applicants right now are not white men, they're white women. And an awful lot of black women, by the way, too. And they're doing very, very well on the SAT scores, consistently better than men. So Brown University, for example, got 50,000 people applying for 1,700 freshman slots last year. And Brown University accepted basically 50-50 men and women. But they had nearly twice as many female applicants as male applicants. Now, if they had accepted based on test scores, they would have ended up with actually more than 2/3 of their campus being women. And colleges, because the women are number one, they showed up 2-to-1 over men in applications to Brown. But on top of that, they generally tend to have higher scores, higher SAT and other kinds of scores that get you into college. So if we went to an entirely merit-based system for college entrance, what's going to happen is that Brown is going to end up with maybe 3/4 of their students being women. And Brown doesn't want that, frankly. I mean, this is one of these. This is a woman who was. Who had worked with multiple colleges. And if I can find her name and get the quote. Yeah, there's Ted Mitchell, I'm sorry, not a woman, president of the American Council on Education, says this drips with irony, which is clearly true. But this is, and Linda McMahon, our education secretary, has said that, quote, aspiring students will be judged solely on their merits, not on their race or sex. And I think that I think Linda McMahon thinks, because she came up in an era when 70-80% of college students were white men. Back 50 years ago. That's the era that Trump grew up in. That's the era that Linda McMahon grew up in. But now it's quite different. And so 2023 is the most recent year for which the figure is available. 817,000 more women than men applied to universities and colleges, according to federal data. Boys had lower mean scores on the SAT, lower overall on the ACT, and lower grade point averages in high school. And Madeline Rayner was the person I was looking for, headed admissions at 4 private universities, and she said, that the universities, like Brown and Columbia and whatnot, the reason why they're not accepting all these women who are highly qualified and beating out the men is because, she says, quote, they want to create what feels like a balanced climate. They don't want people to look at that college and say, oh, that's a women's college. Three-quarters of the students at Brown are women now. Or they would be. I mean, if admissions were based purely on ACT, SAT scores, which is what Linda McMahon is proposing. So, I think it's fascinating. I will say I don't have a dog in this fight. I understand the logic on both sides. I understand universities wanting to have diversity. I think that's a good thing, particularly racial, religious, and regional diversity. And regional including international students. I get that, and I agree with that. On the other hand, I also understand the argument that if you're a university, your job is to train the best and the brightest to be even better and brighter. And so you really should be picking the best and the brightest. And on the third hand, I get it that there's kind of a middle ground between these two things where you say, okay, well, the difference between the best and the brightest who are scoring, 96 on their tests and the best and brightest who are scoring 94 on their tests is not that great a difference. So if we don't take all the 96s and we take a few 94s, that's okay, because we still have the best and the brightest. But, that allows us to have this diversity. So I get that too, but I just think it's incredibly ironic that Donald Trump's war on college admissions is probably going to result in many fewer white men getting into elite colleges going forward. Isn't that fascinating?